Welcome to Tuned In with Mike Johnson, a public service of Mount Wilson FM Broadcasters and Global Jazz Incorporated. Now, here's Mike.
Thank you, Al Verdi, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tuned In from Mount Wilson FM Broadcasters and Global Jazz Incorporated. This morning, we're going to be talking about something that might be near and dear to your heart or someone you know, but it might be useful information one way or the other. Our topic this morning is baby steps, how new parents can ask for help. If you're a parent for the first time, and many people listening to this radio program have been parents at least once in their life, it's the sort of thing where when you get started, you don't always have the help and support that you need, and that can be scary, but we're going to show you that you can get through it and get some information here to give you some tips on what to do. My guest is Dr. Colleen Cira. She is the founder of the Cira Center for Behavioral Health, and she's based in Chicago. Doctor, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good. Thanks for being with us this morning. You know, doctor, it's the sort of thing where when you become a parent for the first time, some people have all kinds of built-in support. They have parents, they have loved ones, they have neighbors, they have everybody who wants to help. Some people, unfortunately, are not as blessed to have all the support built into them. Getting started as a parent can be kind of a tough thing when you've never had the experience. Talk about that to start.
Oh my gosh, yeah, kind of a tough thing is probably the understatement of the century. It is a life-altering, can potentially be brutal chapter in some people's life, and I don't think we talk about that nearly enough because we think of a new baby as this joyous thing, and of course it is. It's wonderful when a baby comes into our life or the life of a loved one. But for that mom and dad or set of moms or set of dads, it is life-altering in ways that are impossible to understand until you're actually in it. And so I'm so thrilled that we're actually talking about this because we talk a lot about the joy and we take so much pleasure in bringing over clothes and things like that, but we don't often talk about how difficult and challenging and lonely it can be. And so I'm really glad to be having this conversation with you today.
You know, doctor, before you can tell anybody what you need, you sometimes have to figure out what you need, and that's kind of the jumping off point there, isn't it?
It really is. And, you know, that sounds so simple when you say it, and I think when people hear it who are listening, it sounds intuitive. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that most of us are in the habit of doing, which is simply checking in with ourselves.
Right.
Before we're a basket case, and certainly when we are a basket case. It's not a habit that most of us are used to. So the idea of checking in with ourselves every single day, several times a day, how am I feeling? What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? What is that feeling? That's so important. And so if there are new parents listening or women who are pregnant or couples who, you know, have surrogates and you're expecting a child, that's a lovely thing to start getting in the habit of now.
Yeah, and checking your stress level is so important, obviously, for your own health, just day to day. But stress is, of course, part of the equation of becoming a parent. Making sure you recognize what's happening to you, that's kind of a big chunk of this, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, because it's so much parenting these days has become this really insular, isolated, siloed experience for people. But, you know, centuries ago, this used to be a community effort. Families would live together in one home or villages, and everybody would take care of everybody else. And so such a huge part of coping in today's kind of parenting is being able to ask for help. And if you don't know what you need, it makes it extra hard to ask.
You know, it's the sort of thing I think also because as you go along, you kind of have this perception, maybe the idealized version of what your mother or father was, how they could handle 16 things at once and everything just kind of magically got taken care of. But, you know, when you're handling bills and you're trying to take care of laundry and you're trying to have dinner and this sort of thing, juggling is a big part of it.
Oh, my gosh. It's an enormous part of it. And, you know, we talk so much about balance these days, and everybody's looking for balance. And I want to just kind of demystify that idea that there can be, and instead try to accept that everything is often going to feel unbalanced. Mm-hmm. And if we can stop beating ourselves up for everything being unbalanced and just accept that that's the norm, and that we work toward how do we just take good care of ourselves instead of constantly looking for balance, whatever that is, I think we'd be better off.
My guest is Dr. Colleen Cira. She is the founder and executive director of Cira Center for Behavioral Health in Chicago. This is Tuned In from Mount Wilson FM Broadcasters and Global Jazz Incorporated. We are talking about baby steps, how new parents can ask for help. Oftentimes in this life, it's important to kind of have some sort of regiment to know when you want to wake up, what time you're going to leave for work, and this sort of thing. And sometimes a baby can kind of throw all that into a tizzy because a baby sometimes is unhappy at 2 a.m, and that's just part of the equation. But trying to keep it to a schedule as much as you possibly can, is that really as easy as it sounds, or is it sort of impossible?
I think it's sort of impossible.
Yeah.
At least in the beginning. I live and die by schedules. I'm such a planner that's how I manage my own anxiety about my life in the world, as I try to plan things out. And so for me, when I was a new parent, I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old now. So when I was a new parent, I wanted so much to have a schedule and order and routine, and I was clinging to that so hard that that all of the twists and turns and the bumps stressed me out, I think, even more. Schedules and routines are great, but in the very beginning, I think it's more about embracing the chaos and learning how to dance in the rain a little bit, or at least survive the storm, because it's just so difficult to have a schedule when you've got a new baby.
Right. Right. And as you said there, you say you live and die and often cling to the calendar trying to get things in order. When you realized at some point, this is not going to happen that way, did it take a minute for you to get reorganized in your brain? Tell me how that happened for you.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how it happened for me. Mm-hmm. I think it happened by having a second kid. And just getting a little bit of life experience under my belt, a little bit of mothering under my belt. So no, it's certainly not as easy as just saying, well, we're not going to have a schedule for now. But I think the constant, all of this is in the service of the mom or dad or whoever the caretaker is not feeling like something's wrong with them, because I think that's a dark rabbit hole that new parents can fall down.
Right.
Why isn't this easier for me? I thought this would be more joyful. I thought this would be more fun. What's wrong with me? And so if people can just remind themselves that nothing is wrong with you, this is a difficult chapter and it will pass. The intensity will pass and it will start to get more fun and it will be more joyful.
But trying to balance all that, though, that can be a challenge at the start, especially when you're not used to it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so just the reminder of like, this is temporary. I'm going to strive for a schedule today, but if it doesn't work out, I'm going to be kind to myself and I'm going to be compassionate with myself. Those reminders that this is a tough season and that we don't typically live in a society that is very supportive to new parents, especially new mothers. And so there's like a lot of things at play here that have nothing to do with the mother or new parent being broken or something wrong with them. Does that make sense?
Sure. And by all means, you want to make sure that you can find that fine line. There's a fine line, of course, to take care of things for yourself and take care of things for your little ones. And trying to navigate it, it can be a little tricky sometimes, can't it?
Oh my gosh, so incredibly tricky. Yeah. And people aren't going to probably find what that balance looks like for a while, or learn to accept the lack of balance. That's just the thing that takes some time. And
of course, now what balances well for you might not balance well for others, and vice versa. There might be guidelines that we can follow, but it doesn't always go according to Hoyle exactly for everybody.
No, exactly. Yeah. And there's just no way to really know what you're going to need ahead of time. You have to kind of be in it to have even a clue. what that will be like and what your wants and needs are at that moment.
My guest is Dr. Colleen Cira. She's the founder and executive director of the Cira Center for Behavioral Health in Chicago. This is Tuned In from Mount Wilson FM Broadcasters and Global Jazz Incorporated. We are trying to give you some information this morning. If you're a new parent or going to be a new parent or have just become a parent for the first time recently, stuff to kind of keep yourself in check and make sure that you understand what you're doing and understanding that it's okay to be vulnerable also, though, isn't it, Doctor?
I'm so glad you mentioned that because vulnerability is key here. Again, I think mothers especially have a lot of pressure that this needs to be joyful, this needs to be the best time in their life, they need to manage everything seamlessly, and that not experiencing joy or saying they need help is an indication that they're a, quote, bad mom, which, of course, is not true.
Yeah.
And so the ability to be honest about their experience with someone, with their partner, with a family member, with a friend, just being honest about the challenges that are associated is just so huge in helping people take good care of themselves and get the support they need.
Having the support of somebody else, a partner, a loved one, is of course so important. Some people, though, unfortunately, are by themselves or they don't have a significant other. Trying to find that balancing act when you're alone can be, of course, even more difficult. Talk about that sort of concept.
Yes. So I think a lot of mothers, whether they're partnered or not, feel very lonely in motherhood. I'm thinking about some of my darkest moments of motherhood was, I'm married. My husband was I was sharing a bed with my husband. But my firstborn, I breastfed both of my children, and my firstborn had acid reflux. So the doctor said that I needed to hold him upright for 30 minutes after he got done nursing. And when you're a new mom, yeah. And when you're a new mom, nursing can take an hour and a half. So now I'm up for 2 hours. My husband can't breastfeed my son. And it felt silly to wake my husband. This is me not asking for help. Now I can see that. But it felt silly to wake my husband and ask my husband to hold my son for 30 minutes. And so I was just alone, despite the fact that my husband was laying in bed next to me, and the amount of loneliness that I felt in those moments was profound. So now if we think about somebody who is a single mom, that's just multiply that times 1,000,000. Yeah. And this is where community is just so crucial for all mothers, but especially moms who are going it alone, either by choice or by circumstance. The importance of building a community is just profound.
Making sure that you have, you're, as you say, you're fortunate you have your husband, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But as you say, even with your husband's right next to you there in the bed, it was still sort of a feeling of being isolated. Talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, I think that's a feeling that mothers have more and more these days. So, again, historically, we've raised children in big extended families where everybody lived in the same house or on the same block or in the same neighborhood, in more rural communities in the same village. And it's just not that way for the most part anymore. And so families don't have as much family support, or maybe they're choosing to not have as much family support because they've realized that their families can't kind of give them what they need. But there's just so much more isolation these days in parenting. And it really, it leads parents, and I think especially mothers, to this feeling of what is wrong with me. And I think that's the very dangerous part in this, is that the loneliness can lead to a sense of like something must be wrong with me because this isn't what I thought it would be.
I suppose again, if you're, and I'm just going to blame TV here for a second because I'm going to blame TV for a second. If you watch TV and, and everything is sort of laid out as perfect and lovely and wonderful, and there's never any issue at all, when there is some sort of even a small thing, as you say, your child having acid reflux, it's that sort of a feeling of I failed on some level.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. And I think we as a society have done a real disservice where everything gets polarized, but especially with motherhood, right. There's no gray. It's either you're breastfeeding or you're terrible. And all of these messages and the way that we message about motherhood was created to do best by children. So it's all well-intentioned. There's no judgment here. But the messages are extreme. And there's a constant messaging of if you don't do it right, you're going to screw up your kid. And there's nothing more terrifying as a parent, but especially as a new parent, than the idea of you messing up your kid's life.
Sure. Well, of course, that's something that nobody wants to go down that road intentionally, obviously, and that's the thing.
No.
The thing is, of course, that because these messages become, as you say, they're so black and white, night or day. It's you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong, and again, it kind of goes to the idea though that walking that thin line for some people works better and easier for one than someone else. It's not the same for everybody though, and I think that's kind of what we need to get across here this morning, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. We all need different things, and I think that we've done a lot of messaging. Society has done a lot of messaging around motherhood as such a self-sacrifice that baby comes first and whatever, and it's upside down. The caregiver really needs to come first in terms of being taken care of and loved on and catered to, because if mom or dad or caregiver is being taken care of, then that child will be the same.
My guest is Dr. Colleen Cira. She is the founder and executive director of the Cira Center for Behavioral Health in Chicago. This is Tuned In from Mount Wilson FM Broadcasters and Global Jazz Incorporated. Doctor, as we talk about our topic, baby steps, how new parents can ask for help, one of the things that I know from some of the research I've done here, the topic says it all to me here. Ask for what you want and say what you need. This seems to be the most basic thing in the world, but it really sometimes isn't, is it?
It's so hard.
Yeah.
And I say that as a psychologist who have clients who struggle with this, and I say that as a human being who struggles with this myself. We feel bad about needing anything. We often feel bad about having one. We often feel, especially women and mothers, like we're burdening people by asking for something. There is a definite feeling of we should be able to do this by ourselves, and we should be able to do it all the time well. And that's just crazy and completely impossible. But it is so hard for people to say what they need and ask for what they want.
The idea of being self-reliant, we all understand that concept, but it's not a failing to ask for help. It is just a request from another human being to give us a hand with something. There's nothing wrong with that, is there?
There's definitely not, and I think that this could possibly spin us off into something else entirely. But so many of us grow up with the idea that our needs are not valuable, and this actually goes to some parenting stuff. But how our needs were met or not when we were children gives us a strong message about whether we have value, whether it is okay to ask for what we want. Were we shamed and guilted for saying what we need? And so we bring this whole life history into this, where many of us have experiences where it did not go well when we asked when we said what we need and we asked for what we want, and we carry that with us until we wake up and decide we have to do something different.
Well, and that's understandable. And yes, you're right. I think definitely what happens to us in our childhood can certainly linger over into adulthood. There's no doubt about that. Again, the idea, though, that if you're asking for help from a loved one or a spouse or someone to help with things related to your baby, though, it's not a matter of I'm a dumb person. It's a matter of I need some assistance here.
Definitely. No, it's a very, very valid thing, and certainly we're here to encourage people to do that. Just shedding some light on why it's so difficult.
Right, sure.
And it's because it carries with it all of these experiences where asking for help has not gone well. Where our needs were not responded to.
I think the idea of asking for help, and we're going to go off just for a moment here off topic. I think the idea of asking for help is not a failing. It's a matter of actually just trying to help your friend, help your loved one, help your spouse, whatever it might be. And I don't think there's anything greater in the world you can do than to help someone else who is in need of can you pick up the laundry for me today? Can you go and get some food for me today? I have a flat tire. Can you help me change my tire? Whatever it might be. These small acts that somehow seem sort of throwaway to some people, they're really a big deal to some people.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And when we as an adult are able to say what we need and ask for what we want, and we have this corrective experience of our partner or a family member or a friend saying, of course, I would love to help you. What else can I do? And we have an experience of that request going over well. It is so freeing. And it makes asking the next time so much easier. It's just people need to gear up to ask that one time to that one safe person. And have a good experience, and then it gets so much easier.
I know somebody, and I won't identify who they are, but I know someone who at points has been shy to ask for help. This person has a great deal of responsibility, and sometimes people want to volunteer to help and do more than is actually called for, just based upon situations. And this person generally is reticent to ask or accept the help. I don't know if that kind of goes back to the idea that when this person was young, they were told, don't ask for help, then you actually have to owe somebody a favor, that sort of thing. I guess that's a different kind of mindset, though, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's a mindset that's really kind of common, based on a culture that's so individualistic and everybody needs to be super independent. We as a Western society don't place a lot of high regard on interdependence and cooperation and working together. Everything is just to enforce independence. And so the idea of asking for help and cooperation, I think, is a real struggle for many of us.
My guest is Dr. Colleen Cira. She's the founder and executive director of Cira Center for Behavioral Health in Chicago. This is Tuned In from Mount Wilson FM Broadcasters and Global Jazz Incorporated. Our topic this morning is baby steps, how new parents can ask for help. And we sort of went off the tangent there about to help, but I think the idea really kind of plays through, though, to everybody, whether you're a parent or not. So I figured that we can do that. That's my show anyway. So, Doctor, one more topic we got to talk about this morning here. And the subject really makes all the sense in the world, especially for new mothers. It's the subheader here says, give yourself a break. You just had a baby. Talk about that.
Yeah. Again, this is a complicated thing, right? Because the messaging about moms in particular, is that moms should be exactly the way they were before. They should go back to work right away. And we've got a million structures in place that support this belief.
Right.
Their bodies should go back to exactly the way they were right away. And we've got Instagram and Facebook, all of which is lots of people trying to prove that they can do that.
Sure.
So there's just a lot of pressure to act, look, behave, think as if you didn't have a child. But of course you did. And so there's a lot of internal struggle there that I think moms face about all the messaging that they should be just as competent and beautiful and functional as they were before they had a kid. But of course that's not possible. Or it is, but the price is so unbelievably high to pay to put on that mask. And so the idea that we can start to counter some of that messaging about you did just have a baby and that changes your whole world and that changes your whole life and that changes your body, and that's okay and that's normal. But there's not a lot of messaging around that.
I mean, I know this concept is out there, and I understand, especially women have this. So many women have this idea that they have to, just as you say, get back to right where you were prior to the baby, and it's easy and it's wonderful, and there's no problem with that. It's not that easy. It's just, I mean, I'm thinking about it as my son is now in his early 20s, and when my son was born, it was a big event for me, let alone for my then wife. To just kind of put it back on the shelf and get back to work and whatever. That's impossible.
Yeah, it's absolutely impossible. And yet we have all of these structures in place that necessitate it.
Yeah.
Where people who do not have the financial luxury to stay at home for longer than their maternity leave dictates, where they don't have maternity leave, and so they're going without income, like I did for my second child.
Oh, wow.
And so I needed to go back after 6 weeks. Thank God it was my second, because I wasn't ready even with my second, but I definitely wouldn't have been ready after my first. And so, no, it's absolutely impossible. And yet it is the reality for a lot of people because of all of these complicated government and societal expectations and structures, that women feel a lot of pressure or just need to do those things.
Trying to satisfy your personal want of, career-wise and this sort of thing, I get it. Trying to balance that with knowing that there's a little one at home who's wondering where mommy is. How do you do that?
Well, so what research is really, really clear about is that it's definitely not the amount of time that you spend with your kids that's important.
Okay.
It's not quantity, it's quality. And so you could be home all the time with your kid, but if you are barely paying attention to them, if you're frustrated every time they need something from you, it doesn't matter how many hours you put in. It's about how much love you show, how attuned you are, how quickly you meet their needs.
Right.
Those are the things that matter. And so it doesn't matter how much you work. If you're home in the morning, it's about really making those few minutes count. If you're home at night, it's about making that bedtime routine feel really special. If you're at home on the weekends, it's about creating amazing memories with your kid and your family. So I think that working parents can feel a lot of guilt and get a lot of pressure, but that's not what's important at all. It is the quality, not the quantity, that dictates your attachment and your relationship with your child.
Dr. Colleen, Cira, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I've appreciated the conversation.
That's Dr. Colleen Cira. She's the founder and executive director of Cira Center for Behavioral Health in Chicago. And again, if you're a new parent, it can seem overwhelming at points, but remember, it's going to be okay. Just do your best. My name is Mike Johnson. Thanks for listening to Tuned In.